Welcome back, traders, to the next lesson in this intro to trading and price action on risk and money management. If I could start off this lesson with any sort of disclaimer, it would be that risk and money management, and this is something I'm speaking from experience of working with tens of thousands of traders, that for traders which struggle, this is the lesson they most often pay attention to the least, and yet it's one that has one of the largest amounts of impacts, or one of the most important impacts upon your performance. I cannot stress this enough. Do not take this lesson lightly. Do not take risk and money management lightly. I understand it may not seem sexy as charts and trade setups and how to make trading decisions, but it is one of the most fundamental things you will have to get down well, do well, because if you don't, you'll constantly be leaking money left and right just because of your risk and money management. It is that important. It is that crucial. So take that seriously. I really want you to, you have a chance, since you're starting out here and you're still developing, you're kind of in this developing phase here, that you can learn this lesson right from the beginning, so it will save you a lot of time and money later on. I've never seen a profitable student of mine or profitable trader of mine make money without proper risk and money management. I've seen them with varying degrees of skills in terms of finding trade setups and charts and technical analysis and price action, all that, but I've never seen a single student of mine make money trading without good risk and money management. This is one of the most important skills you will need to really develop. So let's jump into this. Okay, so proper risk and money management. It is such a priority for you as a trader, just like it is for a poker player. One of the most parallel professions out there in terms of similarities and skills and mindset and things that you're going to do, other skills or professionals out there would be poker players, either online poker players or people who play cash games at casinos. They have to have proper risk and money management. They have to understand the math. They have to understand these things, and they have to adopt them in such a way that it's an absolute priority. Because if you don't, when you're losing, you're going to lose more with poor risk money management, and when you're winning, you're going to win less. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a bad idea to me. So, drilling this into your head, proper risk and money management, kind of like the picture, is like having a good rope and a good fix to the mountain, and without that, it's like not having any rope. Now, you're going to learn a lot of terms here in this slide and a few slides forward, so don't feel like you have to get it all right off the bat. But we're going to introduce you to a lot of risk and money management terms here. And so let's kind of go over them. So the first or second line here is average plus R and risk to reward ratio. You'll often hear the term risk to reward ratio, and what that basically means is that what is my risk in relationship to my reward, and what's that ratio? So if I'm risking, $10,000 on a trade, how much do I stand to gain if it hits my profit target? And so if I'm looking to gain $20,000, if it hits my profit target, I'll gain $20,000. And if I lose, I risk 10. Then what that means is my risk to reward ratio is 1 to 2. And we'll kind of go over that. But this is the main thing you need to understand is it's a way of understanding how much you're risking in terms of how much you are going to gain if you win. I personally find average plus R to be a better metric and a way to measure it than risk to reward ratio, and here's why. When you see, in the next slide we'll kind of go over it, but the risk to reward ratio has two numbers, and average plus R is just one number. Average plus R is basically just saying how much are you on all your wins and losses, particularly on your wins, that when you win, how much are you winning on average? Are you winning 1 times your risk? Are you winning 2 times your risk? Because it's one number instead of two numbers, and your risk is always going to be a multiple of 1, basically, unless you cut the position in half. But even then, your average plus R is going to be a variable of that, which I'll go over in a second. So I personally prefer to use average plus R versus risk-reward ratio. And I'll show you in the next slide what this kind of really translates out to. It'll make a little more sense then. But just remember, average plus R, in my opinion, is a better metric than risk-to-reward ratio. Risk of ruin. This concept actually came about for professional poker and casino and blackjack players. Basically, they wanted to know that if they could win X percent of the time, and they were working with a specific size bankroll, and the percentage edge that they had was whatever percent, that they could calculate out into infinity whether they were going to, what is quote unquote, ruin or blow up their account. And if you have a risk of ruin at 0, what that means is you have a 0% chance to blow up your account, assuming your metrics are stable. And that's a super important statistic, because this statistic alone will tell you whether you're going to make money or not, or whether your account as it is going to blow up based on your current parameters. And so your goal should be to build your account up and your performance up so that your risk of ruin is 0. If you have that, then you know you have a 0% chance of losing money, and that means by default that you're going to make money over time. Another kind of term or important concept when it comes to risk and money management is max risk parameters. You should always have a kind of set of parameters that is your guideline for in terms of how much you can lose per trade, per day, per week, per month. You don't need to have all of those. You could just be fine with max risk per trade and max risk per month. But you need parameters. And the reason why you have the parameters is it's kind of like a guardrail that if you lose a certain amount in a month, then it's probably a good chance that you're just kind of off that month, and you're going to have some off months, just like the best basketball and football players have off games and off weeks. It's going to happen to you. You should bet on that being a reality. And so we have these kind of guardrails and these max risk parameters to avoid going too far out of alignment. At a minimum, you're going to need a max risk per trade, because that's, and we'll kind of get into this in detail, if you don't have the maximum risk kind of per trade laid out ahead of time, then maybe one trade you're risking $500 and the next trade you're risking $1,000. And if that number is constantly in flux in terms of how it relates to your account, then you have a mathematical problem, which means that you will never really know if you're going to win or lose your next trade. You just won't know. There's no way you can know that. And so with that being said, if you don't know if you're going to win or lose your next trade, well, then wouldn't you want to be risking the same percent of your account each time? Because what if I risk more on the next trade and I lose that one, but then the trade after that I risk less and I win that one? Well, when I risk more on one trade and lose, that's a bigger drawdown for me. And then the next trade, if I risk less, that means the amount that I gained on that was less, because there was less upside for me to make. I was working with a smaller amount. So it's super important that you build what I call a risk profile and kind of portfolio in terms of how you manage risk. And this is kind of like your guide. It's kind of like your playbook for how you manage risk, so that you don't have to think about these things. It's just kind of drilled into you and you know exactly what you're doing. When it comes to risk per trade, I recommend in the beginning no more than 1%. And if I had to kind of give a little tip or suggestion, in the beginning, it's better if you start off conservative, because you're going to make a lot more mistakes in the beginning. So why would you put more of your capital at trade or at risk if you're more likely to make mistakes? Once we kind of get those mistakes kind of narrowed down and eliminated or reduced, then we can start putting more money on the table, so to say. But until that, I'd recommend risking less than 1%. You can start off with 0.25 or 0.5%, but ideally no more than 1% risk per trade. Now, there's a big debate not amongst professionals, but there's a big debate amongst like trading mentors, mostly because a particular narrative by somebody who's really good at marketing has kind of proliferated that you want to be risking a fixed dollar amount. And I'm going to show you with many scenarios that that's not the path you want to take. You want to have a fixed percent of equity at risk at any point in time. It's a far better model than fixed dollar amount. And let's kind of get into that. So we'll get into that actually in the next slide, but I want to actually cover a couple things in here so you understand this whole risk reward and average plus R. So if you're going to risk $50 on the next trade, then that's 1R. That's basically your risk for the trade. And if you are going to go for 4 times that, let's say you're going for a target that's 4 times that. So you have a chance to make $200, you're going to risk 50. According to the risk reward ratio, we call that 1 to 4. You're risking 1 to gain 4. $1 to gain 4, 50 to gain 200. I think it's much simpler to just say, hey, I'm going for 4R. It's one number. It already has built into it implicitly that if I'm going for 4R, it's 4 times 1. I'm always risking 1R. And so with that being said, or a multiple of 1R. So I think average plus R is a far better way to express risk than the risk to reward ratio. Another example of average plus R and risk to reward ratio is let's say I have a larger account or slightly larger account and I risk $500 on trade. Okay, that's my one risk. That's what I'm risking for this account. So I'm risking 1R, which is 500, and let's say I'm going for 2 times that. My target is twice that. Okay, so I'm trying to make $1,000 and I'm risking 500. If you were to express that as risk to reward ratio, that'd be 1 to 2. Or you could just simply say 2R. Hey, I'm targeting 2R in this trade. My risk is 500. Let's say you have an even slightly large account. Let's say you're starting to get into the more professional retail trader space. Then, you're going to start risking large amounts. Just like poker players, as they get better, they risk large amounts. So when you start getting into the professional retail trader space, you're going to have trades where you're risking 4 figures and 5 figures and up. And so you could be risking $5,000 on that trade. That's your one risk. And let's say you're trying to target 3 times that. Well, you're going for 15,000, which is 3 times 5,000. That's a plus 3R. If you use risk to reward ratio, that's 1 to 3. And again, this is just a much simpler expression of that. Okay, so risk of ruin table. So this is a table that I would suggest taking a screenshot of because it has a lot of information in it. The best way to understand this, so there's a couple variables in here, but remember what I talked about in terms of risk of ruin, which is that what are the percent chance that you are going to blow up your... So let's break this table down. Right here is your win ratio, or another way to express this is accuracy. So we have varying levels of accuracy based in 5% increments. This would be, hey, I'm 10% accurate, so I'm winning 10 out of every 100 trades, 15%, 20%, all the way down to 90%. Payoff ratio simply refers to how much you are gaining on average per trade when you win. So if it's 1 to 1, then that means if I'm risking $1,000, on average, I'm gaining $1,000 per trade. 2 to 1 would be if I'm risking $1,000, on average, I'm making $2,000 per trade. 3 to 1 is I'm making, for every $1,000 I'm risking, I'm making $3,000, and so forth, 4,000 and 5,000. Now, inside these little boxes here is the percent chance that you're going to blow up your account. So if you're 10% accurate, and that means out of 100 trades, you're going to win 10 and lose 90. If you're risking 1,000 to gain 1,000, or payoff ratio to 1 to 1, well, you have a 100% chance of blowing up your account. And if you look, 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, all the way up to 50%. If you are anywhere between 10 and 50% accurate and you're risking 1 and you're gaining 1 every time, so you're risking 1,000 to gain 1,000, risking 100 to gain 100, you have a 100% chance that you will blow up your account. It's only until you get to 55% accurate does that number go away from 100. It comes down to 13.4%. At 60%, you have a 1.73% chance to blow up your account. At 65%, you have a 0.2% chance to blow up your account. Only at 70% and above will you have a 0% chance to blow up your account. And if you're wondering why that is, this has to do with two things. One, transaction costs. And two, the way trading works, and I've talked about this with variance, is that, yes, if I am 50% accurate, then what that generally means is I will, for every 100 trades, I should on average win 50 and lose 50. Very much like flipping a coin. If I flip a coin over 100, 1,000 times, the average number of times that I will hit heads or tails should be about 50%. But if you were to run an experiment and say you were to flip a coin 100 times and then count all the heads and tails, it's not going to always be perfect. There's going to be some times where you flip it 100 times and heads will show up a little bit more than tails because it will vary. The statistics will average out over time, but there's going to be variance. Sometimes over 100 flips, you're going to get more heads and tails, sometimes more tails and heads. It's not a perfect ratio. And so because of that variance, you can have times where maybe you go on a little bit of a losing streak and it's enough over that 100 trades that you still have a possibility of blowing up your account. So this is really accounting for variance. In fact, all these little areas, these white boxes, really have to do with variance and transaction costs. So it's important to kind of understand that. So only once you are at 70% accurate do you have mathematically a 100% chance that you will make money with a payoff ratio 1-to-1. At 2-to-1, you have a little bit more. You have a little bit bigger window to do that. 65% accuracy, you're going to make money 100% guaranteed. But even look over here, look at this kind of 0.04%, 0.18%, 0.83%. That's a very, very low probability that you're going to blow up your account. Even 3.41 is a pretty low probability. Ideally, you want the number at 0 because then 100% mathematically you're going to make money. But you have a lot more of a buffer window when you start going to higher payoff ratios or higher targets on average. And you also have a smaller window to lose money. When we go to 3-to-1, the window gets even smaller. Same for 4-to-1, same for 5-for-1. And if you notice that as you increase the average size of your target, the window also gets bigger to make money. And your buffer zone for making money in terms of 100% or pretty darn close to 100% gets bigger as you keep going further and further in terms of the payoff ratio. So this is a super important table to have with you and to understand. And I recommend that once you have a solid baseline of 100 trades that you analyze your risk overrun so that you can understand, hey, is the way I'm trading right now mathematically going to make money or lose money? It's very important that you know that, because once you have that, then you can really see where is that Rubicon, where is that line in the sand that you need to get to where once you cross that point, you're going to make money. You don't even have to worry about it at that point. That's just part of the deal. That's how the mathematics play out. So this is a super important table to really kind of learn and digest and make sure that you have down pat. Okay, risk threshold examples. This is just kind of give you an idea. We talked about max risk per trade, per day, per week, per month. So let's say your max risk per trade is 0.25% of your account. So if I have a $100,000 account, 1% would be $1,000. So 0.25% would be $250. So I'm going to risk $250 per trade. That's 1R. And so this is just kind of an example. So let's say this is your risk profile, 0.25% per trade. Well, you could set a max risk per day of 4R. It could be 5R, whatever. If it's 4R, then it's 4 times this. So the max you're going to risk is $1,000 per day. And so this is just kind of an example of how you can do that. Using these same numbers, 2 times that, or 8R, that means you'd have to lose 8 trades in a row without winning a single trade. Then you'd be risking a max 2%. And then a max risk of 4%, if you're risking 0.25%, that means you have to lose 16 trades in a row to hit your max risk per month. So this is just kind of an example profile. Again, I'd recommend no more than 1% per trade. And if you had to ask me about what I would kind of give as a guideline for max risk per month, I would say no more than 9 or 9.5%. And the reason, I'll just give you a quick summary of that. The reason being is because statistics are pretty clear. Every time you have a double-digit month drawdown, so 10% or higher, the statistical probabilities that you're going to recover your account go down exponentially. And so you want to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, so we talked about percent equity risk model versus fixed dollar amount, and I kind of wanted to show you a couple scenarios of which one does better. So let's say you started off with a $10,000 account, and let's just say you had a 100 trade winning streak. You won 100 trades in a row, which I've seen done before. I'm trying to think of what my largest winning streak was. Probably somewhere maybe 20, 25 trades in a row. I don't think I made it quite to 30, but 20, 25 trades in a row. And so, but let's say you won 100 trades in a row and you were risking 1% of your equity per trade versus a fixed $100 per trade. At the end of 100 trades, if you start off with 10,000, if you used a percent equity risk model, at the end your account would be $27,048. However, if you went the fixed dollar amount, your account would be $20,000. So in this scenario, it completely outperforms by a large margin the fixed dollar amount. Let's take the other side of the equation. Let's say you go on a 100 trade losing streak, which I think would be pretty uncommon. Could it happen? Yes, but it'd be very unlikely. But let's just say you just had an absolutely awful run. 100 trades, you lost 100 in a row. Same size account, same number of trades, percent, you're risking 1% of your equity versus $100 per trade. At the end of those 100 trades, with the fixed percent equity model, you would still have $3,660 left in your account. Guess what? If you're risking a fixed dollar amount per trade, your account would be blown up. You would have nothing left. So in this scenario, again, fixed percent outperforms fixed dollar amount. And this was kind of a nice little study that somebody did that, and it's true, traders tend to go on streaks. So let's say you happen to go on a 9 trade win streak or a 9, 10, or 11, 12 trade losing streak. This green line is what your account looks like if you're risking a fixed percent of your account per trade. This one outperforms tremendously. The fixed dollar amount will only gain about 6-7%, but the fixed percent will be up about 17, 18, 9%. And that's just over 9 trades. Whereas, and that's risking, I believe they had it at like 1% per trade for the fixed percent amount. And same on the losing streaks. And so the fixed percent model slows down your losses as you go on a losing streak, whereas the fixed dollar amount continues to drop your account even more. So, you know, we've run a lot of simulations when it comes to fixed percent versus fixed dollar amount. And in 7, maybe 8 out of 10 scenarios, fixed percent does better than fixed dollar amount. And so I can't recommend it enough that this is the model you should adopt. And it also makes it much cleaner for you to manage. Like if I know I'm risking 1% of my equity per trade, as my account grows or shrinks or as it's in flux over time, I can easily do that calculation of, hey, what's 1% of my account? If I go on a winning streak, I still know what 1% is in my account. I know what my equity is in my account. But if you go on a winning streak and you're risking a fixed dollar amount, well, don't you have to decide arbitrarily when you want to increase that fixed dollar amount? And even if you do decide to do that, what mathematics are you basing it on? And how do you know at what intervals to change that? Have you done the math on that? So if you want a more simple, straightforward model that performs better in 7 or 8 out of 10 scenarios across hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mathematical scenarios, you want to use the fixed percent model. I can't not recommend this enough. Wow, that was a big lesson. We covered a lot of ground, but everything that we've covered in the last 25 minutes is going to be, for those of you that really take this seriously, it's going to be a lifesaver, a life preserver. It's going to be golden for you. When you have losing streaks, it's going to save you money so you have smaller drawdowns. And when you have winning streaks, you win more money. I cannot emphasize this enough. I've never seen a path for a trader making money. I've never seen a trader make money long term with poor risk and money management. I've never seen it to this day, and I've seen thousands of profitable accounts. I've never ever seen it to the day. But I will say I have seen thousands and thousands of accounts of traders that have lost a lot of money, more money than they should have, with really poor risk and money management. So take this to heart. This is a super important lesson. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you really felt like you got a lot out of this and really understood some really important core concepts of risk and money management, and feeling like you have a way forward to how to plan your risk and money management from here on out. So with that being said, I look forward to your comments and questions, and I will see you in the next lesson.